Happy Friday, Bills Mafia. Welcome to another episode of the Friday Night Forecast. I'm your host, Travis Blakesley. And tonight we're just rolling as a duet, I would say. Cody, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Missing Herm, but we'll make it through.
Of course. Herm is our residential Buffalonian, and he's feeling a little under weather, but, outside of not being able to talk, he would have been on here anyway. But you know what? We got a big matchup to break down, and also I would say get our last little revel in the Patriot beatdown. So that's where we'll start off. Everyone who's in the chat, thank you for joining us. Please subscribe, and share. Goes a long way. So just throw a thumbs up in there. Share it to your friends. Cody, Josh Allen, 21 for 25, 5 touchdowns, 305 yards in the air, and 66 on the ground. I mean, was it one of the best performances? I know we're pretty young, but was it one of the best performances specifically for a quarterback, or even just the offense as a whole? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I honestly probably, being that we're similar in age, I can't remember a game where I enjoyed a Bills game that much. It's kind of like that where you're playing a division rival. It's the playoffs, which is still even new to us, being that we were kids when all the teams were going to the playoffs. And I think the fact that that game was almost over by the second quarter just made it so nice for us to be able to sit back and just watch how good this team can be and watch how great Josh Allen can be. And I mean that, we've talked a couple times about Josh Allen and is this the best game he's ever played? I think that was the best game he's ever played. Just being the stage that he's on, going against the best coach that's ever coached football. Say what you want about him. He made our lives a living hell for 20 years. So we don't like to give him too many props, but the fact of the matter is he's a genius, and Josh Allen made him look very pedestrian with probably the greatest offensive performance that the Bills have ever put on turf. 7 for 7. The maximum amount of yardage we could have gotten in a football game other than the kneel down. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. It was just incredible. And it was so much fun to watch. And you can see I'm still smiling from the game, and I'm hoping going past this weekend we'll be smiling some more.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said nails it right on the head. There is still work to be done because we did miss 2 extra points. I mean, if there's anything that you can bank on McDermott talking about, that's for sure one of them. But it was odd because you could pretty much say after Micah Hyde had that wonderful interception, that kind of took the air out of the Patriots. There was no way that they were getting back into that game. Even on their best day, I didn't think Mac Jones played that bad at all. I actually thought he played better this time around than the previous game, but his teammates just did not have it. The skill gap was obvious, and like you mentioned, I mean, I didn't really realize throughout the game how perfect it was until you're hitting the fourth quarter and able to kind of look back at the stats, check Twitter or what have you, and just to be able to march down the field every single drive. And like you said, there were no yards to be had outside of that final kneel down drive. It's just amazing. I mean, you're living through history. I was literally a year old when the Bills beat the Raiders, 51-3. And outside of maybe that 2001 opening game against the Patriots, that was a close second, but I mean, it was just perfection, and it was awesome to see. I know there are a lot of Bills fans who feel the same way, and watching the Steelers and the Steelers and the Chiefs game kind of was a little bit sobering, but it's still a game that you're going to remember. And like you mentioned, the opponent was big. to do it against the Patriots in that fashion, it really put the final nail in the coffin, the dagger in the heart. And it really seems like this is the Bills' division for a long time. I don't think a guy like Mac Jones is going to be able to compete on a yearly basis twice a year. But it wasn't all Josh Allen. I mean, we had a lot of production for the entire skill position groups. And why don't you start with the running backs? I mean, yes, it was a Devin Singletary show, but I mean, Reggie Gilliam, man, whenever they have that guy in the game, he makes plays. Tell us what you thought about the running backs.
Yeah, just to pick up on Reggie Gilliam there, because he's a player that probably, if you're a Bills fan, but maybe don't follow too closely, he's probably not a name that you know too much. But he did some key blocks in this game. Coming around on poles, knocking guys out. That second, I believe it was the second Singletary touchdown, where he just took a guy out of the play, and it was beautiful. This guy, I don't know where he grades out, but I think he grades out somewhere in the top 3 as far as blocking, and he's really making his presence felt. Now, when you think of the Bills and you think of a kind of a spread offense and all these wide receivers that we have, you don't think of a fullback. But man, he's making himself not only valuable, but something that's getting on the field. And just to go into Singletary now, he's been what we've all been clamoring for probably 2 years. We all knew, and you mentioned a couple of times, how well he can cut, and we always said, oh, he doesn't have the speed, he doesn't have the burst, but this is a guy that now you're hearing about how he's telling the offensive line, hey, listen, these guys are coming down a certain way. I'm either going to take this north-south or I'm going to go east-west here. And having that confidence to be able to dictate to the offensive line, hey, I think it's better if you guys do this because I'm going to do that, just shows how much he's grown as a player and how much work he's put in. And I think that you're starting to see that work that he's put in is really starting to come to fruition here, because not only is he, giving us the threat to run, we now have a running game that ranks, I think, I was looking it up, from weeks 13 to 18. Now, this is fantasy football, so it may not come out the same as if you looked up a PFF, but that's, PFF is, I don't look too much into that. But as the second graded running back. So, I mean, here's a guy that not only giving us a two-dimensional offense, he's becoming a focal point of this offense. And that's absolutely huge in the playoffs. We've been talking about this for so long that, these defensive linemen can pin their ears back and get off to the quarterback. And it just leaves us with so many fewer options when you don't have a running game. And now we have a running game, a competent back, and an offensive line that's just playing with the utmost confidence right now. And it's elevated not only our offense, but Josh Allen and what we can do going into Kansas City this weekend.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on some of those stats, I mean, since week 14, the Bills have averaged 163.8 yards rushing per game, and they're 5-1 over that span. Week 6 through 13, they were just barely under 100. They're at 99.7. So as much as this is a passing team, it cannot be understated how important this run game is to the Buffalo Bills' success. I'm always for throwing the ball for sure. I mean, you got Josh Allen, you're paying him all that money, you have weapons, but why not make his job easier when you're able to produce on the ground? Now, you mentioned the offensive line, and we'll get into that later, but I think that has a lot to do with the success of the run game. You can't just run for the sake of running if it's not going to be successful. Now we're seeing the kind of the inverse of what we saw earlier on in the season. Moving on to the wide receiver position, you really saw just a wealth of guys coming on and off the field. I believe they said that this was like the most heavy rotation to date between wide receivers. And, coming on and off the field. So you had Stephon Diggs obviously with that long pass down the sideline, which was great. We saw a lot of him really kind of eating J.C. Jackson's lunch, so to speak, and you obviously have that long pass from Manny Sands. Great to see him bounce back and really be that deep threat we needed. Isaiah McKenzie, he had obviously a couple rushes, but 3 for 29, solid day from him, and really just being able to find that corner. I mean, a lot of people ask for a Deebo Samuels type roll out of Isaiah McKenzie, and in theory, like I understand what people are saying, but Deebo Samuel's like 6'3", 225. Nobody wants to tackle that dude. But Isaiah McKenzie is showing his worth, and it's good to see. I mean, he's that extra dimension that we really didn't have. Gabriel Davis, although he only had 2 catches for 41 yards, he did have that nice touchdown, which he seems to hit those skinny posts on RPOs all the time. But his blocking is outstanding. I mean, all those runs that you mentioned, specifically that Singletary run, he just pins that last man on the end constantly, and he did a fabulous job to set up guys like Reggie Gilliam and Mitch Morse to kind of lead the charge out there. And then we'll leave the big men and the tight ends in our next discussion, but Cole Beasley 1 for 19, and Devin Singletary, it seems like he's good for 3 or 4 receptions out of the backfield all the time. It was just an awesome showing from the wide receiver position. And then where we did the most damage, I believe, I mean, we got 3 touchdowns out of the tight end group. Why don't you pick up with the tight end, and don't forget the thick 6 from Tommy Doyle.
Yeah. I think just going off what you said there, I think the sobering thing there is you see what a great day that Josh Allen had, when in reality, I mean, he did. That was reality. But from the wide receivers, there wasn't a wide receiver that caught a ball more than 3 times in this game. Dawson Knox was the high catch guy, and with 5 catches. And I think what you saw with this Patriots defense, especially from the linebacker position, was old and slow. And the tight ends really, and when I say tight ends, I really mean Dawson Knox, really put in work. And that's not even just against the linebackers. I believe that last catch was over the one where he almost got into the end zone, went down the one. I think that was over J.C. Jackson as well. So you're seeing a guy that's just a complete mismatch. Speed on the linebackers and size on the cornerbacks. And, it's that old thing that we always talk about, peaking at the right time going into the playoffs. And there's just so many guys right now that are peaking at the right time. And he's just coming down with those big time catches. I mean, that throwaway touchdown to start the game off, the catch over J.C. Jackson, the blocking. We're talking about Tommy Doyle releasing into the end zone for a big man touchdown. That's just when everything's going well. You just pull that shit out of your ass and and put it on the field, and it looks beautiful. And it was just the whipped cream on top, But it just seems like when this team is firing on all cylinders with the wide receivers, and like you mentioned, the amount that can come in and out between Cole Beasley to Isaiah McKenzie, I was so happy's not the word with McKenzie. It was just, I guess there was a couple of times where he gets that corner and it just seems like it's going nowhere. And then he's 15 yards upfield. And you're like, I didn't realize this guy had this kind of speed. And it just adds another
safety's
dimension.
In position, and then he just blows right by him.
Yeah. And it was just like, wow. When this thing is going, I don't think it can be stopped. So, just talking about the wide receivers and the tight ends, it was a great day for everybody along with the quarterback. And they make the quarterback look good, but there was a few times there where the ball might not have been perfect, and the receivers made sure that they got their hands on it. And when that happens, it can be the difference in a game. And in this case, it made it not a game. because this game was over. Like you said, as soon as Micah Hyde caught that interception, from then on, I kind of thought, I don't think they're coming back here.
No, and not even making the extra point, making it 28-3 would have helped the Patriots.
Yeah, right.
You know, but moving on to the big guy, since we we can transition right off of Tommy Doyle. I mean, we haven't seen a sack in a month from this unit. A unit that we knew going into the season was probably going to be the weak point of the offense, maybe even the team in general. I mean, we weren't really too sure how the defense was going to show out. But as the season went on, majority of our losses, they were close, and a lot of it came down to protection. I thought the team as a whole played good enough to win a lot of those games, but the offensive line was a unit that, after the Jacksonville loss, I really had to question if this team was good enough to win in the playoffs. I really thought they would get there, but I didn't think the offensive line was a good enough unit to protect consistently. And the trope is it starts up front, and man, these guys have really, really gelled. And I thought a lot of the issues early on was communication based, but there were guys that were getting beat. I mean, Deion Dawkins, obviously, coming off of COVID twice, he had some rough games early on, but I mean, stud. He's been a stud for the last 6 or 7 weeks. Rick Ryan Bates steps in like he's a 6-year vet, like he's been there and done it before. Mitch Morse, the scheming, I think, is perfect for him this year, at least in the running game, where they're pulling him a lot, and that's what he's exceptional at. He's a great coordinator out there, as far as getting line checks. He's undersized. He's going to get beat up a little bit against the Cam Haywards of the world. And, we got a guy over there this week who's ate his lunch before,
Yeah.
but to get him pulling so often, whether it's a QB run or a toss sweep, or even some of those counters, which have been looking great with Singletary back there. He's been doing awesome. I think Darrell Williams down the guard has just been exactly what this team needed. And obviously having a guy like Spencer Brown ready before anyone even thought he'd even sniff the lineup. I mean, this is a guy who you could see maybe a healthy scratch all year, an emergency tackle, so to speak, the backup swing tackle. He was upgraded to the swing tackle, and then he ends up starting. So it's really all come together for these guys. I mean, outside of just kind of praising them, what do you think it was? I mean, the Patriots front is no slouch. They're going to be tested again this week, but again, we haven't seen a sack of Josh Allen in 4 weeks, and a lot of it early on was because Josh Allen could move. But I mean, he has time to throw the ball. What are your thoughts on the O-line continuing to dominate?
Yeah, I don't want to simplify it too much, but a lot of it to me just seems like a lot of want to. And when I say that, the physicality of this offensive line over the last month has changed dramatically. And I think it starts with Deion Dawkins, who you brought up. I dogged him a lot at the beginning of the year because I think he deserved it. Now, these are professional athletes, and the guy's coming off COVID, and you don't know how something affects him or what they're dealing with. So it may not be fair, but when you put constant performances on the field, it's the only thing we could judge him on. So I didn't think when he got elected to the Pro Bowl, I kind of was like, well, this is kind of crap. But man, the last month I couldn't be more wrong really there. He's been outstanding. You're seeing him knock guys off their feet 20 yards downfield. You insert Ryan Bates in there, or Rick Bates, whatever you want to call him, putting chicken wings on his head in the end zone. And I think we'll touch on Spencer Brown, just bringing that nastiness, kind of similar to Feliciano when he came here. And I think that allowed, obviously, Darrell Williams to kick down to guard, which he's been much better at. So I think, especially on the tackle positions, there's like an aggressiveness there that really is translated. But I think the number one uh, cog on this offensive line, I guess, would be Mitch Morse, and I think he's kind of been an unsung hero for this team, and especially for this offensive line. He's not somebody you really talk about. Offensive line, you don't really talk about to begin with, but he's been so constant and so good. And I think people maybe don't realize how important bringing him over from Kansas City was for a young quarterback. And just seeing Josh Allen grow into the player he is now has a lot to do with Mitch Morse and his ability to read defenses, excuse me, which makes Morse's job that much easier. So I think it's a combination of getting guys in the right spot, having the same offensive line going out there week after week, and then guys just up physicality. How many times on this show did we say, "Oh, is this team physical enough? Are they mentally strong enough?" It's happened a few times, and I think over the last month, you've seen this team kind of transform into a different monster, a good monster where we're knocking guys off the ball. We're talking shit after the play. We're talking about Singletary. We breezed past him, but he's getting up, carrying guy. He's not a big guy, 5'7", 200 pounds. He's carrying guys 10 yards down the field. He's popping up and saying stuff after every play.
Always, yeah. To a linebacker.
There's a different, I hate the word swag, I really do, but there's just a different feel to this team that we didn't have earlier in the season, and we have it now. And it has, and I keep saying, oh, this is elevating it, and this is elevating it. But I think the offensive line as a group has really just gelled and are playing off one another and just have a nastiness about them right now that we didn't have earlier. And it's just translating to the field.
Yeah, Josh Allen can operate under pressure better than most, but if you give that guy time, he's lethal. I mean, in the last showing specifically, I mean, there wasn't he was hit maybe once, and just surgical. We mentioned it on a previous show where we said if Josh Allen's on, you're just not stopping him. It's come to that. And it's funny because every time we end up playing Kansas City, Josh Allen's a nice player. The Bills are a nice team, but can they put it together? I don't think there is any doubt that this is a neck and neck, game, opponent, however you want to put it. I don't think there's many people who would easily who are afraid to take Josh Allen over Patrick Mahomes in these matchups. I mean, how many times do you enter the conversation? Well, if you were going to start a franchise, who would you choose? And I think at the end of last season, I was comfortable choosing Josh Allen. Now I'm not going to say that you're splitting the hair, in my opinion, when you're talking about him, the Rodgers, the Bradys, and obviously if you want longevity, you're going to go with a younger guy. But I think that the tide is starting to shift because I think it's clear that when Josh Allen is on, he's better than everybody else. And I don't think that's hyperbolic at all. I think, are you going to get that every game? We haven't seen it yet. I mean, there's still this kid's still got many years in front of him, but I think without a shadow of a doubt, this offensive line gives him the time. You're in trouble as a defense. So let's switch over to the defensive side. Man, that Micah Hyde interception. Have you ever seen anything as beautiful as that? I think the wide receiver thought he caught the ball. He's looking down in his hands and it's gone. Thoughts on your reaction when you saw that live?
Well, I tell you, my reaction was I thought the receiver caught the ball. And I was like, oh shit. Well, and then I see everybody cheering him jump up. I said, oh my God. And like I said earlier, and I think we both alluded to it, I kind of thought at that point, we're pulling, we're getting a good break like this. We're pulling stunts out of our ass like this right off the bat. I felt really good about the game at that moment. Because I just kind of felt like Jones is going to be limited to underneath stuff, and it's just not going to be enough. And it wasn't. I mean, at the end of the day, they got pounded, and you know, it was never really a game after that. But no, I never really seen anything like that. Maybe highlights of Jim Edmonds when he played for the Angels, or Willie Mays, you know, but
I was
not on
going
a
to say
football
Willie
field. At
Mays.
least not
That's
one.
the only thing. It's the
Yeah,
only thing
yeah.
you can really compare it to.
But there's not one. I don't even know if he looked the ball into his hands, to be honest with you. I think it kind of fell into the bread for him, which I don't
Yeah, he
care.
said
However,
he looked up and the ball was there, and he wasn't really tracking it.
yeah, these guys have been, we've hit on it. If these guys have been the glue for the whole defense all year, um, you know, thank God that Poyer got all pro. Hyde gets second team all pro. But, you know, we know that, and especially going into this game, those are the two guys that have really held this thing together, especially Trey White going out. They're awesome. They might be the best tandem in the NFL. You might be able to individually pick out guys and say this guy or that guy, but together, the way they feed off each other, the way they play off each other, more importantly, and the fact that they're able to kind of play strong and free and come up into the box and tackle, they're awesome. The play was awesome, and it was a game changer, I believe.
Yeah, they're certainly going to have to meet the moment again and play possibly even better with a far more explosive team. But before we
Right.
get on to next week, or excuse me, Sunday's matchup, the front seven, something that really went under the radar. The Patriots were not able to run the ball, even when they were quote unquote in favorable positions to run the ball. A lot of times, if it's a close game or you're winning, you're going to run the ball. You could see success, but also if you're getting blown out, you'll be able to run the ball. I mean, this is a team that had 20 carries for 89 yards with a 16-yard long, and I believe that was by Mac Jones. What a great performance. I thought we were able to set the edge. The toss plays didn't work. The counters didn't work. Really, those scrambles were really the only thing that really the downside of the defense was when, again, you see Jerry Hughes get upfield and Mac Jones able to slide in between the gap that he created. We saw all types of things. We saw a little bit of Saran Neal. We saw obviously AJ Klein come in whenever they brought in that extra tackle. We saw AJ Klein come in and make some plays. How are you feeling about this front seven? And is it going to hold up against teams that we may see in the future?
Yeah, I think that the rush defense was something that was a bit of an Achilles heel for this team. Not I think I know. I mean, we saw what happened with the Colts game, the Patriots game, the first time they played. I think there was just some scheme tweaking that needed to happen there. You mentioned AJ Klein and Saron Neal. I know we were clamoring for them the first time these teams met, and there was less of it than I thought there was going to be with AJ Klein. Because listen, do I think he's better than Tremaine Edmonds? No, but he's more instinctual, and he can get into the gaps and shoot, and he can make a tackle. And I thought that the way they played it was perfect. Argue with results. So in fact, it worked out great. But I don't think that there's really too much different that's going on. I think that maybe just on the defensive side of the ball in meetings or such that they're kind of just telling these guys, listen, the second is doing their thing. You see this formation, or you see this guy giving a tell here, or they line up with this guy outside, blah, blah, blah. And you see that movement, shoot that gap. We saw it in the second half of the first game with Milano just shooting gaps right from the snap. And I think that you're just seeing a little bit more integrity, some better discipline, and really just some better play. And I think that everybody's just elevated their game and made it their kind of their modus operandi to stop run. That was what we got knocked for. That's Jerry Sullivan coming on and telling guys they should be embarrassed. And I think guys have taken it personal and said, "Listen, we're the number one defense. We don't have a weakness here, and we're gonna clamp down on this and turn our so-called weakness into another strength." So,
yeah. I really think at least the I guess the failures of the Bills' front seven or run defense in general was just execution. I know a lot of people talk personnel, and there's a place and there's a time and a place for the 4-3, and that's when you see the extra linemen come in. But really, people are just really filling their gaps, their fits, and you don't see as much over pursuing. And that's what happens in this defense. If you get to the spot where you're supposed to be, 9 times out of 10, they're not making a big play, and that's what we saw. So, we'll put a pin in this victory that we'll all remember for the rest of our lives, especially the people who got to go there. We heard you were loud. It was electric. I mean, every stadium's loud, but it was pretty special to watch. So hats off to everyone who was there. This week, the weather report, it's gonna be quite considerably warmer. We're talking mid-30s. Again, no wind, so pretty ideal for a January playoff game in Kansas City. So I don't think that'll be an issue at all. And just a stat that I wanted to bring up as we get into this. The rushing game since week 13, Allen has 403 yards, 3 touchdowns. Motor has 456 yards and 7 touchdowns. Are we going to see a concerted effort to run the ball when we take the field against the Chiefs?
Yeah, I believe so. I think I think the recipe for success has already outlined it here. We're not going to be a dead horse here and say that you need to be two-dimensional and run the football to be successful. But listen, this is Kansas City. They've been to the Super Bowl the last two years. You need to be successful on all fronts here to win this football game, and that includes rushing the football. There's, we mentioned before, you don't want to just run the ball to run the ball. But there is something to be said for being able to run the football and have these linebackers move forward and move back. If these guys are taking a step secondary every time, there's going to be space to run the football. And we do so many RPO type things that if you get into the right play, there's always opportunity for success. And with Mitch Morse and Josh Allen, especially Josh Allen, the way he's playing, if you went back and you watch the All-22 on that game, you're going to be seeing so many times where it's an RPO, where the pass is there, run is there, and he got us into the right play. And the play is a success there. So I think what you'll see is probably what we've seen the last month of the season, which is 60-40 pass to run. I expect to see success there. I don't see why you don't. Now, they have some talent on the defensive line, great. But there's ways to remedy that, and I think we will. I don't see what Kansas City does well as deterring us from doing anything on offense. I really don't. They're a solid defense, especially after the year, but we can do whatever we want to do if we execute, right? So that's just my thought on it.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I just want to add on to it. The fact that we're able to run on 3rd and short and pick up those first downs. We forgot to mention we were 6 for 6 on 3rd down. We had over 30 or 29 first downs, and they only got us in third. They only got the Bills in 3rd down situations 6 times. It was awesome, and whether it was Allen running the ball or Motor running the ball, pick up those first downs like clockwork. Speaking of the next game, bring up the stats here. Obviously, 38-20. The week 5, the Bills' defense were very physical. I think it was the first game where we actually saw them be more physical than their opponent at the line of scrimmage. How can the Bills replicate this?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of how. I think just it's a matter of want. You've seen over the past month, and we've been talking about it. This is a different team now. I think we questioned in the past against the Titans, against Jacksonville, especially. Is this team soft? Are we able to run the football? Are we able to go against these teams that bring that edge to the game? You saw in the first meeting with Kansas City, we were, especially at the line of scrimmage against Kelsey and against some of these receivers that have speed, we're knocking them off their routes. We're not getting them, letting them have free releases. We're getting in their face. We're playing almost borderline for a penalty. And I think, I'm not positive, and you can probably let me know, but I think that we have the same crew that did the first game, which kind of lets some plays play out. They're not a flag happy crew. And I think you kind of have to do that again, right? You have to make these guys uncomfortable. And you saw in that first game, Kelsey throwing his hands up. These guys are holding me. These guys are doing this. And he got off his game. And Mahomes was off his game. And they end up forcing stuff. And when teams force things, that's when turnovers come. That's when bad plays happen. And that can be the key to winning this football game. So I think I expect, actually, let's say I expect this team to come out with the same intensity that we've been doing. It's it may not be a division opponent anymore, but this is king of the hill for the AFC. So if you don't get up for this game, you're not going to get up for the game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned them being off their spots. I mean, looking at the stats, they turned the ball over 4 times. We turned the ball over 0. That's got to be. I mean, if there's ever a statistic to explain an 18-point, blowout, so to speak, I think that's it. You mentioned not a lot of penalties, but there's a lot of work for us to do. I mean, we're 10 for 103, and like you said, there's a lot of. I wouldn't, whatever the inverse of ticky tack would be, but they're just letting them play, kind of like a NHL game in the playoffs where.
Right.
There's a lot of grabbing, a lot of bumping, but hey, the Chiefs were known for doing that, and it shows up in the stats here. So, do I think that that's going to be something they're going to try to replicate? Absolutely. I think, like you mentioned early on when we were going over last week's game, to really bring the energy, the physicality. At the end of the day, I mean, it's still a grown man sport. There's still, I don't care if you're getting paid. I don't care if you're 6'6", 300 pounds. If you're getting bullied and you're getting, really just kind of beaten into submission, you're going to give up. I mean, they're only human at the end of the day. And the Patriots, they kind of put a fork in it early on. I believe the Chiefs are going to do a little bit more, but I think this is a notorious slow starting team. And if the Bills can jump out the way they did last week, I think that's a recipe for success. Sticking with the defense, and I know we kind of went back and forth, but this is the first game where not having Trey may be an impact. We saw Trey exclusively on Hill. Well, not exclusively, but majority, even following him in the slot on Tyreek Hill last week. Do you think that we're going to give up some bigger plays due to not having Tre'Davious White? And if so, or if not, what is going to be, let's say, the defensive approach in guarding these guys? Because, I mean, they have speed. McCole Hardman, fastest guy on the field last week out of all games. You got Pringle, who's like a Hill light, and then obviously you got Hill and Kelsey. What do you see them doing to kind of make up for not having Trey this go around?
Yeah, I think this week, even before reading anything, just when you're thinking about a game, when you're driving, whatever, the first week where I kind of thought to myself, man, I wish we had Trey White back on the field. But I think, it's going to be a huge test. But I think the initial litmus test there was against the Buccaneers, and you saw what they did to us the first half. We made some adjustments going into the second half. It was a different game. I think they'll play some quarters. They'll do some half. I think just to give somebody some props here, I think Taron Johnson may be the best lockdown slot corner in the NFL. McCole Hardman, Pringle, yeah, these are nice players. Speed kills, but I think we have the secondary to get this done. Now it all comes down for me, the safeties. We already touched on it today. These two guys are the glue to this defense. They're always in the right spot. I think they will try to bait Patrick Mahomes into some throws this weekend. And if you're taking some risks, I think you can get burned. So, I don't have the numbers in front of me and see how many passes over 20 yards they had in that initial outing, or over 30 yards. I think the opportunity might be there a little bit more for Kansas City, but I think the opportunity is also going to be there for us to get turnovers. So Leslie Frazier will have this team dialed up. They're going to know what they want to do. There's tape upon tape about what these guys do. There's trickery, all these little stuff they do in the red zone, especially with the little flips and all this stuff that we need to be ready for. So our work is cut out for us. This is, possibly the best offensive team in football. And they have so many weapons. They're very similar to us in that sense. They can kind of go big with Kelsey, who Trey White was actually on a few times in that initial matchup, or they can go with speed with those guys. And Tyreek Hill is a phenomenal receiver. So, our work is cut out for us. I think, I think we have the guys to get it done, but we're going to rely a lot more on scheme, I think, than personnel in some circumstances here. And I think the big guys here, obviously, safeties and Taron Johnson in the slot, being able to stride with some of these guys.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. And it's going to be, you're kind of looking at yourself in the mirror at some aspects of the game, and at least for the Bills' perspective. Now, something that kind of got left by the wayside a little bit, something forgotten about, was the Bills' front four specifically. Obviously, everyone remembers the big Greg Rousseau tip pass interception, which was great. You didn't see a ton of sacks, only 2, but what you did see was Mahomes consistently throwing off platform. He did not seem comfortable in the pocket. There will be times where Mahomes extends the play. I mean, that's what he's known for, spinning around, running to the sideline, tiptoeing, making a throw, a little bit more finesse than Allen in that aspect. But you didn't see a lot of that. He was pretty much hemmed in all game. You could see it was a concerted effort to stay in your rush lanes. There was not one blitz utilized at all. I think that's well documented. When you blitz Patrick Mahomes, it backfires more times than not. But at the same time, I think his pass completion percentage when he is not under pressure is like 80%. But when he's under pressure, it literally drops in half to 40%. So what do you feel Buffalo is going to, or how is Buffalo going to treat this game when it comes to pass rushing this go around?
Yeah, I think they'll kind of maybe stay in the same mode a little bit. I think we're going to rely on a 4-man front with some opportune blitzes from Micah Hyde and Taron Johnson. I think we'll play a little bit more coverage. The good thing for us is, and we've been reiterating this time and time again here, is a lot of these guys are playing some of their best ball. And Ed Oliver and Harrison Phillips have really just come out of the woodwork and turned into a dynamic duo, especially up the middle here, which is going to give us some opportunities on the outside with Addison and Hughes, who had quite a bit of pressures in that first meeting, if I'm not too, uh, if, I, if I recall correctly. I think he had 7 or 8 pressures, which is, we dog him because he gets upfield and leaves escape routes. But if he's getting pressure and getting them off the spot, then that's going to give our guys in the secondary some opportunities there. So I think, if we can get some pressure with Harrison Phillips taking on some of these 2-man, 2 gaps, and Ed Oliver being able to knife through, I think we'll see some success there. And if we don't, this is with any game plan. If you don't have success, you're gonna have to make some changes, right? And then we'll see, what happens from there. Whether that's some timely blitzes or sending an extra guy down. That remains to be seen. I think we'll start the game playing a 4-man. I think Leslie Frazier has pretty much shown his cards there. That's what he likes to do. It's just how much success we get doing it. Now, that relies on the players, right? So if we're on and these guys play like they have been playing, then it'll be great for us. But I think a key thing here is, and you saw with Kansas City against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh does not have a bad defense, and Patrick Mahomes is not the biggest quarterback. I think he's maybe 6'2" at the tallest, and T.J. Watt is awesome at this, and you saw it from Rousseau the first time we played. Get your hands up. These guys got to get their hands up in the passing lanes. If you're not getting there, get your hands up, because a turnover off a tip pass in this game might end up being the difference in the game. So, if you're Tremaine Edmonds, if you're Rousseau, some of these guys that are 6'6", 6'7", 6'5", whatever, if you're not getting there, get those hands up, and we'll see what happens.
And we'll get into what Kansas City is doing now more effectively than they were when we previously matched up. But something that we can add to the Bills' D-line, this defensive line is playing way better all around in all accounts. We're getting much more pressure, and the sacks are starting to pile up. You're getting meaningful pressures. And the last thing I wanted to hit on was, when you talk about the Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer blitz, I think you'll see it, but I think it's going to be a zone blitz where you see a defensive lineman kind of drop out, really artificial, or, just create pressure, but by not sending more people, just artificially generate that pressure from an overload or what have you on passing downs.
If you do that, and I agree with you, and you saw it a few times again with Mario Addison, another tall guy. I just want these guys to fill up some space. Tremaine Edmonds, say what you will about him, but he's ginormous and he takes up a lot of space. So if you have him in the middle of the field and you do drop, you bring Poyer or you bring Hyde or whatever, and you drop Mario Addison or one of these guys at 6'5", again, you have 2 condors in the middle of the field there just taking up space. It's going to block passing lanes that much more for Mahomes. And so I agree with you there. I think that is the move, and I think that will, limit the options that Mahomes has going forward.
Yeah, very much agree. I think we're on the same page of that. But like I mentioned, KC, no doubt, is playing much better than they were in week 5. Their defense, although they're going against inferior offenses, really, I think they're leading the league in points allowed for like the second half of the season. But on their offense, they've really flipped the script. They've been much more successful with the quick passing game, ton of screens. I believe in like the last 6 or 7 games, they're 14% of their passes are screen passes. This is a team like Buffalo who likes to take shots down the field. Well, that wasn't working early on. And there were many reasons why that was happening, but it seems like they've gotten that ironed out. Their offensive line is playing a lot better. And as I mentioned, Mahomes is near perfect without pressure. But you got guys with the likes of Tooney, who is, an all-pro, Creed Humphrey, who just looks like the steal of the draft at center, playing elite. Orlando Brown, who did not play well against the Bills early on, he's picked up his game. So what do you see different about this Kansas City Chiefs offense specifically, and then we can kind of get into the defense after that.
Yeah, right. I think you just hit it right there. The offensive line. KC completely rebuilt their offensive line over the offseason. And we all know these things take time to gel. These guys need to grow into themselves as rookies and as a unit. And you said it, they're just playing that much better. And as far as the offense as a whole, I think they ran into the same problem that the Bills did mid-season. Teams see you on film. They know what you want to do. They know you have a strong arm, big arm quarterback with speed down the field with elite wide receivers. You want to throw the ball down the field. These guys are playing 2 safeties deep, 3 safeties, staying in nickel, dime, whatever you want. And the quarterback and the offense has to change. They have to, learn how to beat that coverage. And the way to do that is by throwing the ball underneath, being patient, and taking what the defense gives you. You saw it here with Buffalo. Kansas City did the same thing. So it's an elite offensive unit here, and you can't hold them down. You can only hope that you can mitigate some success. So, it's somebody just mentioned it. Our defense is better. I do believe that. So I think you do have a bit of a shootout coming. Not in the sense of, both teams being in the 40s, but if you think you're going to keep this team off the scoreboard, it's not going to happen. This is not the Patriots, So they'll find some success. It's just hopefully we're able to modify whatever we're doing to adapt to that and move forward and mitigate the success that they're having on the field. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see how they want to attack us, but I think that's basically what they've been doing, is being a little bit more patient on offense, especially with Patty Mahomes, and taking whatever is given to them.
Yeah, and before we get out of the match or this breakdown of the opponent and into the matchups, like we mentioned, our offensive line has been playing great, but they got some guys now, the Chris Jones of the world, Frank Clarks. We're going to see Melvin Ingram for the second time, who really ate your boy's lunch over there. Dawkins, we're going to see him on a different team. But then a couple other changes. I mean, we're seeing a lot more of the Nick Bolton, who was a rookie, who they're kind of releasing the reins a little bit. Their linebackers are playing much better. Their linebacker play was terrible early on. I think that was really the crux of their issue. And you're not seeing the slow-ass Daniel Sorensen. Once Dawson Knox really ate his lunch, he was actually benched after our first meeting, and Jackson has kind of gone in. Are you a little worried about this defensive line, the defense in general, who have really kind of been putting the locks on a lot of these teams?
I wouldn't say that I'm worried. As far as Melvin Ingram is concerned, he went against Deion Dawkins when he played for Pittsburgh. That wasn't the same Deion Dawkins. We already touched on that. He's a different player. I honestly don't think that he will do anything in this game. I think he's going to be a ghost. I think Dawkins completely shuts him out. Now, Frank Clark, on the other hand, is going against Spencer Brown. I think he'll line up on that side a little bit more, on the blind side. Or, excuse me, not on the blind side, the power side. We'll see what Dable wants to do there. If he decides to put Knox out there and chip, or bring Singletary on a chip, I don't know. We'll see. As far as the linebackers, if they get their linebackers out of jail in time to play this game,
the anti-vacuum.
Yeah. I don't know. That team just consistently.
Willie Gay will be playing if anyone's worried.
Well, he absolutely will be playing, and I think they probably underutilized him a little bit. Now, this team has so much more speed than the Patriots. Are slow and old there. Maybe you can use that. These guys are a little bit more inexperienced. Maybe you can get them going the wrong way, or, we'll see how the Bills try to attack that spot. Daniel Sorensen, he's still getting maybe 50% of snaps. I'm not really sure. None of these guys really strike fear into you. I think they're just playing more sound football. But again, I mean, we're looking at a game where they came off against the Steelers, a pitiful offense. They let up 21 points. If they let up 21 points against the Steelers, I think 35 is very doable for the Bills. So, I don't know what to say there. There's nobody on this other than Chris Jones. I think he's their X factor. Being able to move him inside from where he was in the first matchup is a huge difference for them. So that's going to be a big test for Mitch Morse. Like you said, he's a bit undersized, and can he match up? Can these guards match up? We'll see where they move him, along the line there. He's the one guy. He kind of reminds me of like a Fletcher Cox type that I worry about. But I think if you have one player like that. Now, granted, Ingram, Frank Clark, these are good players, but it's kind of looking into like the Buccaneers playing Aaron Donald. You can scheme for one player. You can do it. You can double team. You can triple team. You can play heavy offensive line. You can bring in Tommy Doyle as that 6th offensive lineman or whatever you want to do, or chip on a guy and bring another. There's ways around that, and we'll see how we choose to attack that. That would be my biggest. I don't want to say fear, but that would be my biggest. What's the word I'm looking for here?
You're gonna know where he's at all times.
Exactly.
You pay attention. And I would say Matthew, same thing. Like I think he's overrated. He's still a very good player. He's someone that you have to really know where he's at because he baits quarterbacks into throwing where they shouldn't. But yeah, you mentioned. I mean, having like guys like Charvarius Ward and L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, are either of them even better than Levi Wallace? I mean, they're guys out there,
They're solid NFL players, right? They're solid NFL players.
Yeah.
But is Leslie Frazier staying up all night figuring out ways to scheme up things to beat those guys? No. Now, and I don't want to undersell them and say, like they're, if Herm was here and say they're riffraff. No, they're not. They're solid players, but there's nobody on that, especially in his secondary, other than Tyrann Mathieu, and I think he's had a bit of a down year, in my opinion, that really jump off the tape at me. And I think, I think you leave it at that. I think there's ways to, you're not going away from those guys, right?
I think we're both on the same page where I don't think Kansas City is going to be beating this Bills offense. I think it's more of the Bills offense beating themselves, which is where we've seen breakdown and ultimately failure. I don't, again, they're paid too, but we've definitely have moved the ball and scored on better defenses. So, yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps up Kansas City's team. We're going to get into matchups, stats. So if everyone who's in the chat with us still, you want to drop your predictions, whether it's score or stats, any hot takes, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them as we go on. But let's start with the matchups. What matchup are you looking forward to most, Cody?
Matchup I'm looking forward to most here. I think I'm going to say our linebackers versus Pat Mahomes. I think these guys are going to come in huge this week. And just to reiterate what I was talking about before, Tremaine Edmonds has to have a huge day. As much as we dog him, he does have great size, great length, and he's going to have to cover from sideline to sideline. This is a speed team. And it's also a big team with Travis Kelce. And the same goes with Matt Milano. We're going to have to get out and cover these guys. We're going to have to jam them at the line of scrimmage and then cover these guys down the field. So I think that, if these guys play like they did against the Patriots, I think we can have a great chance of success this week. I think those guys are kind of, as much as the safety duo, the safety tandem is what I think kind of like our lifeblood in the defense. I think this game is going to come down to the linebackers as far as the defensive side of the football on tackling, as far as whoever they put out there, whether it's McKinnon or Darrell Williams, and then as well as Kelsey and jamming some of these guys coming across the middle of the field. So yeah, that's my matchup that I'm looking at this week: Mahomes versus the Bills linebackers.
I'm going to go with the Bills' red zone defense versus Kansas City's red zone offense. I really think if we can force this team to kick field goals or get turnovers in the red zone like we did last matchup, I really think that can be the difference.
We got to
if
watch
your
out
team
for
is
those little flick balls they do.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Right.
Don't you worry. We will get to that. But yes, really be stout, make them kick field goals, take the ball away. Because this is a big boy game, and you got to be scoring touchdowns to win this one. If you're kicking more field goals than the other team, chances are you're probably losing this game. So with that said, Cody, give me your stat of the game.
Stat of the game, I'm going to go Isaiah Mckenzie with 8 catches for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns.
A little dirty special.
Yeah, I think that speed's going to come in big in this game.
Yeah, well, I'm going wide receiver as well, but I'm going Stephon Diggs 100 plus with 2 TDs. Everyone seems to forget that Jamar Chase ran all over this the secondary. Over 200 yards. What do you have? 3 touchdowns. He was just unstoppable against the Chiefs, and everyone forgets that game. I mean, they talk about that big winning streak that they had mid to late season. Stephon Diggs certainly has I don't care what he says, he has a sour taste in his mouth. I mean, you see that picture of him standing there. We've all seen it. I think special players elevate themselves in special situations, and I look for Josh Allen to really trust his guy. And I think Stephon Diggs is going to rise to the occasion. So that's why I'm going for 102 tutties. Thoughts on us punting? I would like to see us not punt, but I do think field position is going to have to factor in. And again, as long as there's not crazy wind, Hawk is not a great punter, but I think he can be serviceable as long as we're not punting from inside our own 20.
Ditto.
What is your key to victory?
Man, I feel like I do it every week, but I think it starts with the turnovers. I think you mentioned it, 4 turnovers for Kansas City in the first matchup. That's the difference in the football game. Yeah, I think that if we get a couple of turnovers, we bait Mahomes into throwing a couple balls deep, and those safeties come out with something, or we get some tip passes and a linebacker grabs something. I think. Listen, I
we
think
had a tip pick 6 early on in the second half.
Yeah, and Rousseau came up huge in that first game. I think this is a game that it's going to come down to. It's going to be a 1-score game. So I think a turnover or a touchdown or a possession off of a turnover is going to be the difference in the game. So turnovers.
I agree so much that I'm going the same way, but I got a little different angle. We don't go over these prior to the show, so you get what you get. And for me, it's taking the ball away. The Kansas City Chiefs have the 3rd most fumbles on the year. 13.7% of their drives end in a turnover. They have not been great protecting the ball. And a lot of this is skewed because of the beginning of the season. But again, if the Steelers had a pulse, maybe that could have been a different game last week. So the Bills we have squandered some turnovers, but if we can build off last week, and really you're only as good as at this point in the playoffs, you're only as good as your last performance. And if we can kind of replicate that and make the team pay if they're turning the ball over while subsequently not turning the ball over, like you mentioned, I mean, everyone says you win the turnover battle, chances are you're going to win the game. I know it's easy to say, but there are stats here that I just outlined that kind of, usher in a reason to kind of believe that will happen. Not to mention the Bills are the number one defense, so they can make things happen. And finally, how's this game playing out? What's your score prediction?
Bills 31, Chiefs 27. I think both teams have 5 scoring drives, but the Bills hold them to 1 less touchdown scoring drive. And if they get a field goal instead, and that's the difference in the game. Bills 31, Chiefs 27.
Yeah, I'm very similar. Bills 38, Chiefs 31. I believe that they're going to have an opportunity to tie it up at the end, but our defense is going to shut them down. Unfortunately, we're not going to be celebrating come halftime like we did this past week. It will be a nail biter, and I think we have a lot invested in this game. There's a lot of history, and this is not going to be the first or the last time that we see this team in the playoffs. You already got. I mean, we see these guys between them and the Titans. We see them every year in the regular season, and both of those teams seem like they're going to be in the playoffs for years to come. So yeah, I'm going 38-31. Gary Rupert has got the Bills 28-24. Mahal's got 36-16. That would be a great score. We got Justin Lee over here, 37-31. So as always, I forgot to get Herm's prediction, but it's going to be, let's say Herm's got 41-27.
Yeah.
He's gonna have that. He's gonna have a couple drinks in the fourth quarter with his feet up, looking for that victory. But that brings us to our final segment. And let me just come here with the graphic. We got the 5-day forecast.
If any of us are up, have our feet up if any of us have our feet up in the fourth quarter with a couple of drinks, it's gonna be one of the best weeks I had in a long time. I tell you.
I know. The only unfortunate thing is it's going to feel like we won the AFC Championship, but we still got one game to go. That's the most disappointing part. We're a week early here.
Yeah. True.
All right. I just want to let everyone know that I was 5 for 5 last week. Finally, I've been sucking ass with these. Let's see. What did you
toot your own horn there?
Yeah. Well, Herm's not here. I wanted to rub it in his face. Let's see, Cody. You were 1, 2. You were 2 for 5. Could have done better.
Oh,
you could have done a little bit.
Well, we got to go over. I got to see what they are because now I want to hear about it.
All right. So you got the punt one, my punt one that we were laughing about, where it says Hawk averages over 35 yards net punt, and I said cloudy because he averaged 0 because he didn't punt.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, you got it.
I got the technicality there. You got both teams combined for over 300 yards rushing.
Mm-hmm.
That was cloudy. Josh Allen connects on at least one pass over 30 yards. You got, and then the Mac Jones attempts less than 25. You said cloudy, or at least. And Allen sacked 0 times. You also said cloudy, but
yeah.
Listen,
well, geez, I mean, yeah, right. It's crazy when was the last time Allen was sacked? I mean, just the law of averages. It's kind of a lot of this is.
It was before Christmas.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can do that against Kansas City, I don't know.
We'll be looking good. Yeah. Let's replicate it. Bills rush for over 150 yards.
Clear. Josh Allen going to have a big day rushing. Also, hey, just to throw that in there, I've been very good on the I said you got to hold the Patriots under 120. What do they have, 89?
You were right. Yes.
Yep. I'll pat myself on the back for that one.
There you go. I forgot. I didn't write that one down, but you did say that.
Yeah.
2 sacks or less combined.
Cloudy.
I'm going to go clear.
Oh, less than. You said less? Oh, I think Harrison Phillips has 2 sacks this week. So, yeah, cloudy.
Okay.
You said less than, right?
Yeah, so 2 sacks or less. So 2 or less. So it could be 2.
Nah, I'll stick with what I had. Cloudy.
All right. Bills run the goal line shuffle pass. So what you were talking about, where KC always runs it, you think that the Bills are going to run it just like Philadelphia ran their own version of their what is now known as the Philly special.
We've done it a couple of times at Dawson Knox.
And just to
To
clarify,
show
it's got to be inside the tackles. No, not rolling out, but we
right.
both know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we know. And it's kind of like, does McDermott do it to his mentor? Give him a taste of his own medicine. I like it, but I'm going to say cloudy.
You're gonna cloudy. I'll go clear just because.
Yeah.
What the hell? It was gonna
Also,
be. It was either that. It was originally gonna be the Bills stop it, but I figured, you know what? Maybe Dayball gives them a taste of their own medicine.
yeah.
700 plus passing yards combined for Mahomes and Allen.
Cloudy.
Yeah, I'm gonna go cloudy as well. I think this is one of the games where they expect 900 yards or whatever. But I just don't, I think it's going to be a good game, but I don't think it's going to be one of those, when they played the Rams that one year where it was like in the 50s each, right? And then finally 4 lead changes or more.
4 lead changes. Now, like if it's 7-0 and it becomes 7-7, what is that?
It's
Is
still,
that
that's just one until they score.
clear?
All right. I will say cloudy just so we're different.
Opposite.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get Herms. I'm sure he's got it writing down in his notebook right now as he's listening.
Well, he's got his
All right.
score right here.
Oh, he does?
He
You got
does.
it?
Yeah. He
Oh,
sent it over to us. It says Bills 35, Chiefs 24.
okay. A little closer than I thought. Herm, they're leaving points. They're leaving points on the field there.
I can't imagine that we don't get another field goal. I mean, it just seems like when was the last time we kicked a field goal? I mean, at some point you got to get off numbers here. So I don't know. That's just my point. Travis, you frozen up there? Well, I think Travis is frozen here, guys. So with that being said, I think we already wrapped up what we were going to wrap up, and we'll see what happens on Sunday, guys. So that being said, go Bills. Let's get it done. Go Bills, baby.